The young and the restless spoilers. Jack's fury was a spectacle that could silence even the busiest room. The revelation of Claire and Victor's covert liaison had shattered the delicate equilibrium he had so painstakingly maintained. As he paced in the dimly lit study of the sprawling Jabot mansion, the taste of betrayal was as bitter as the midnight coffee he downed in haste. Every detail of the clandestine meetings between Claire and Victor played over in his mind, a secret that was meant to remain buried, yet now threatened to ignite a wildfire of chaos. For Jack, this wasn't just another corporate skirmish, it was a personal affront. His anger surged not only because his world was crumbling from the inside, but also because he could no longer reconcile the motivations behind Claire's actions. Why did she persistently gravitate toward Kyle, the charming yet enigmatic outsider? Was it love? No, Claire's pursuit of Kyle was far more calculated. There was a cold, strategic hunger in her eyes whenever she was near him, a hunger that could only be attributed to ambition rather than passion. It all began when Victor, the consummate schemer with eyes as sharp as a hawk's, had assigned Claire a mission that would forever alter the dynamics between the major players of this intricate power struggle. "Claire," he had said in his usual measured tone, "your task is to infiltrate Kyle's world. Get close, observe, and extract every morsel of information regarding Jabot. I want to know everything, from his personal habits to the financial intricacies that make Jabot tick." There was no room for error in Victor's voice, a silent promise that failure was not an option. With his eyes gleaming with determination, Victor declared that he would stop at nothing until he had crushed both Jabot and Jack beneath his strategic maneuvers. But as the gears of his grand plan began to turn, unforeseen complications started to unravel the carefully woven tapestry. Kyle, ever cautious and perceptive, had grown suspicious of Claire's relentless advances. His innate distrust of anyone who might be using him as a pawn led him to question the true nature of her intentions. It was during one fateful encounter, an innocuous conversation in a quiet corner of a crowded event, that Kyle stumbled upon the subtext between Claire and Victor. Their words, laced with double meanings and barely concealed urgency, painted a picture of espionage that was too stark to ignore. Jack, who had been observing these developments with a storm of emotions swirling inside him, reached a boiling point when he realized that Kyle had begun to distance himself. The evidence of the conversation, though never disclosed to anyone, was seared into Jack's memory. In the silent recesses of his mind, he decided that a lesson had to be taught, a harsh reminder that betrayals, no matter how subtle, would not be tolerated under his watch. Jack's personal code of loyalty and control demanded that those who crossed his boundaries pay dearly, and this time, it was Claire who was about to be schooled in the art of retribution. Unbeknownst to many, the layers of deception were far thicker than anyone could have imagined. While Jack stewed in silent anger, questioning whether Victor was aware of his discovery, Victor remained as inscrutable as ever. During a private meeting in his opulent office, Victor casually mentioned, "Jack, you should know that you're not alone in this game. I have 2 additional spies embedded within our adversary's ranks. Neither you nor Jabot can hope to escape the net I'm casting." His words dripped with confidence, each syllable underscored by the cold determination that had become his trademark. Victor's declaration was not merely a boast, it was a strategic signal, a reminder that he held the upper hand and was always several steps ahead. The tension between Jack and Victor was palpable, their mutual animosity rooted in a long history of power struggles and betrayals. Jack's discovery of the clandestine conversation between Claire and Victor was a wound that festered with each passing day. The knowledge that Claire's motives were not driven by genuine affection for Kyle, but by a calculated desire to serve Victor's agenda, further fueled his wrath. The more Jack pondered over Claire's actions, the more he was convinced that she was nothing more than a pawn, a disposable asset in Victor's grand plan to dismantle Jabot's empire. Meanwhile, Claire herself was caught in a turbulent maelstrom of conflicting loyalties. On one hand, she was the instrument of Victor's meticulously crafted espionage operation, tasked with infiltrating the inner sanctum of Jabot by getting close to Kyle. On the other, she harbored her own ambitions and inner conflicts. Every encounter with Kyle was laden with a dual purpose. On the surface, it was an invitation for camaraderie, a chance to weave a web of trust. Beneath that veneer, it was a calculated move to extract secrets that could topple an empire. Yet, the more time she spent with Kyle, the more she began to question the path she was on. Was she merely a puppet dancing on the strings of Victor's design, or did she have the capacity to forge her own destiny? As the stakes escalated, the undercurrents of espionage and personal vendetta coalesced into a maelstrom that threatened to engulf everyone involved. Jack, reeling from betrayal and desperate to reassert control, decided to confront the situation in his own way. Quietly, he began to gather evidence of Claire's duplicity, meticulously piecing together the fragments of secret meetings, furtive glances, and hushed conversations. His plan was not just to expose her, but to demonstrate, through undeniable proof, that Victor's machinations were not infallible. In his mind, a master strategist like him could not allow his empire to crumble because of a traitorous alliance. Yet, as Jack plotted his next move, the fragile alliance between his own ambitions and the forces aligned against Victor began to show cracks. The labyrinthine world of corporate espionage was rife with unpredictable variables, and loyalties shifted like the sands in a desert storm. The 2 additional spies Victor mentioned were not merely numbers on a ledger, they were key players whose allegiance could sway the balance of power in unexpected ways. Victor's confidence was both a strength and a potential vulnerability, a fact that Jack was determined to exploit. The impending showdown was not only a battle of wits and strategies, but also a war of emotions. Jack's simmering anger was tempered by a keen intellect, one that could foresee the cascading consequences of every decision. His silence regarding the incriminating conversation with Claire was a tactical choice, a seed of future retribution planted in the fertile ground of impending conflict. Jack's inner monologue echoed with the resolve that soon, he would make Claire understand the cost of betrayal. In the quiet of the night, as the rain drummed against the windows of his study, Jack rehearsed his words and envisioned the look of regret in Claire's eyes when she finally realized the magnitude of her miscalculation. Victor, on the other hand, remained blissfully unaware of the storm that was gathering on his own side. His belief in the infallibility of his plans had blinded him to the subtle shifts in loyalty and the brewing dissent within his ranks. Jack may be upset, he had remarked in a casual tone during a recent meeting with his confidants, but this is only the beginning. We have more moves to play. And let me remind you all, I hold the reins. The spies I have in place ensure that neither Jack nor Jabot will slip away from my grasp. His voice resonated with the certainty of a man who believed he could control fate itself, yet in the intricate dance of power, overconfidence often sowed the seeds of one's downfall. As the days turned into nights, the web of intrigue grew ever more tangled. Each character was entangled in their own internal battles, the conflict between loyalty and ambition, the struggle between personal desire and duty. Claire's role as a double agent became increasingly perilous, caught between the imperatives of serving Victor and the gnawing realization that her actions were tearing apart the very fabric of trust she once held dear. Her interactions with Kyle, laced with the tension of hidden agendas, were fraught with unspoken questions. Could Kyle, with his innate sense of intuition, eventually uncover the truth behind her calculated charm? And if he did, what consequences would follow for both him and the greater power struggle between Victor and Jack? Jack's resolve hardened with each passing moment. The confrontation that he envisioned was not just a moment of reckoning for Claire, it was a statement to the entire power structure that deception and betrayal, regardless of how artfully concealed, would be met with unwavering retribution. His plan, though fraught with risk, was meticulously crafted. Every secret meeting, every hushed conversation, was a piece of a larger puzzle that Jack intended to complete, thereby exposing the truth behind Victor's duplicitous maneuvers. In the silent corridors of power, Jack's silent oath was clear: he would not rest until Claire had paid the price for her transgressions and until the formidable alliance between Victor and the clandestine spies was dismantled piece by piece. The stage was set for an explosive showdown, a battle where every whispered secret, every carefully guarded lie, would be laid bare for all to see. The interplay between love, ambition, loyalty, and betrayal created a narrative as volatile as it was compelling. In this high-stakes game, where every decision bore the weight of monumental consequences, the true question was not merely who would emerge victorious, but whether the intricate tapestry of relationships and loyalties could ever be mended once the dust had settled. As Victor's confidence remained unshaken and Jack's determination grew ever stronger, one truth loomed large: in the ruthless world of corporate espionage, trust was a commodity far more precious and far more dangerous than any monetary asset. The game had changed, alliances had shifted, and the very foundation of power was on the brink of collapse. Only time would reveal whether Claire's double life would ultimately be her undoing or the catalyst for an even greater upheaval within the empires of Victor and Jack. This narrative, spanning the intricate emotions, clandestine operations, and shifting alliances, brings to life the complex interplay of ambition, betrayal, and retribution. The characters' struggles and secret maneuvers form a rich tapestry that promises an explosive and unpredictable future. Kyle never imagined that the woman he believed he knew as Claire could harbor such darkness beneath her beguiling charm. For years, he had been drawn to her magnetic allure, enchanted by the promise of something more, until the truth began to unravel like a thread pulled too hard from a well-woven tapestry. The revelation was staggering. Claire, with her carefully constructed facade of warmth and ambition, was not the innocent confidant he thought he had known. Instead, she was a woman driven by a ruthless determination to secure a better life at any cost. Even more disturbing was the fact that she was the daughter of Jordan, and legends whispered in hushed tones around the elite circles of power now painted a grim picture of familial betrayal. It was said that Claire was prepared to kill her own mother to remove any obstacle standing in the way of her aspirations. For Kyle, the shock was not merely personal, it was a jolt to his entire understanding of the treacherous world he had inadvertently stepped into. Every smile, every whispered promise from Claire now carried the heavy weight of deception. He was left to question if his own judgments had been clouded by infatuation and naivety. As he sat alone in the quiet aftermath of his discovery, the truth gnawed at him. Claire's actions were never guided by the gentle hand of love or loyalty, but rather by a fierce hunger for power and a belief that the ends justified any means. Meanwhile, Victor stood at the helm of this elaborate game, his eyes ever watchful for the vulnerabilities of those around him. Cunning and merciless, Victor had built his empire on the ruins of his adversary's ambitions. He possessed an uncanny ability to see the greed, the envy, and the desperation simmering in every heart, and he used it as his most potent weapon. In his calculated strategies, no emotion was wasted, only every person's selfish desires were catalogued and exploited to further his own ambitions. Victor knew that ambition could be both a shield and a dagger, and he wielded it with unparalleled precision. "Every man's greed is his weakness," he would murmur in quiet confidence, his voice a blend of admiration for his own craft and a chilling reminder of the price of failure. With each calculated move, Victor expanded his reach, silently orchestrating events that would lead to the downfall of anyone who dared oppose him. In stark contrast, Jack, a man whose honor and pride were as unyielding as steel, had only one burning desire: to settle his score with Victor in an open, unmediated confrontation. Jack's heart had been scarred by years of secretive betrayals and backroom deals, and the simmering anger he felt toward Victor had reached a boiling point. For him, the battlefield was clear: no one else should be allowed to meddle in the duel he was destined to wage. Every scheme, every clandestine operation that had led to this moment only deepened his resolve to expose Victor's manipulations to the world. Jack's intentions were transparent. He wanted the confrontation to be public, raw, and unfiltered, a duel where every hidden truth would be brought into the light. Caught in the midst of these titanic forces was Claire, whose inner conflicts became ever more tangled with each passing day. At first, her mission had been straightforward: infiltrate Kyle's inner circle and extract every scrap of intelligence that could destabilize Jabot. However, as she delved deeper into her role, the intricate dance between deception and ambition began to erode the lines between right and wrong. The fact that she was willing to commit the ultimate betrayal against her own mother, Jordan, in pursuit of a better life was not a secret known to many, but the implications of such a choice resonated far beyond her personal ambitions. In her eyes, the world was a chessboard, and every relationship, every alliance, was merely another move toward her ultimate goal. Yet, beneath the surface of her cold calculations, there flickered a faint echo of doubt. Could it be that the sacrifices she had made were not worth the looming cost of everything she once held dear? As the days grew darker and the stakes grew higher, Kyle began to wonder if the woman he once trusted might one day feel the pangs of regret for the irreversible decisions she had made. And what of Jack? Would he ever be willing to set aside his relentless vendetta and consider the possibility of forgiveness? The tension between these three figures, Kyle, Jack, and Claire, formed a precarious triangle of betrayal, ambition, and unspoken remorse. The unfolding drama reached a fevered pitch as Victor's grand design began to intersect with the personal vendettas of those he sought to manipulate. In one fateful confrontation behind the gilded doors of an opulent penthouse, Victor revealed, with a knowing smile, "You see, my dear Jack, every action driven by greed leaves a trace. I have seen the lust for power in every one of you and have cultivated it to my advantage. Your personal feud with me, your inner doubts, even Claire's hidden ambitions, they all serve as stepping stones to a future where I remain untouchable." His words, steeped in confidence and a hint of derision, underscored his unyielding belief in his ability to control fate itself. To him, every scheme was a symphony in which every discordant note was meticulously orchestrated, and the resulting masterpiece was his alone. Yet, within the tangled corridors of power, things were not always as predictable as they seemed. Jack, fueled by an ever-deepening rage at the duplicity of Claire and the calculated cruelty of Victor, resolved to strip away the masks that concealed their true natures. "I refuse to let my name be tarnished by lies and half-truths," Jack vowed in a moment of raw determination. His plan was simple: to publicly confront Victor and expose the nefarious web of alliances and betrayals that had been spun behind closed doors. In his eyes, this public showdown was not merely about settling old scores, it was a declaration that transparency and honor would prevail over cunning and treachery. Amidst the storm of scheming and vengeance, a question loomed like a specter over the hearts of those involved: would Claire ever come to regret the irrevocable choices she had made? The weight of her decisions, especially the horrifying prospect of turning against her own mother, began to press upon her conscience. In the silent hours of the night, when the world outside was draped in darkness and the only sound was the relentless tick of a clock, Claire found herself haunted by the possibility that her ambition might one day become her downfall. Was there room in her hardened heart for remorse? Could she summon the courage to apologize to Kyle, whose trust had been shattered, and to Jack, whose honor had been affronted by her betrayal? For Kyle, the prospect of an apology was bittersweet. The trust he had placed in Claire was not so easily mended. Every memory of her gentle smile was now tainted by the revelation of her dark intentions. Yet, deep within him, a part of him still longed for the redemption of the woman he had once believed in. Would her remorse be genuine, or was it merely another calculated move in a game where trust was as fleeting as a shadow at dusk? And for Jack, the idea of forgiveness was almost unthinkable. The bitterness of betrayal had carved a deep wound in his soul, one that demanded retribution rather than reconciliation. His singular focus was the public duel with Victor, a clash that would lay bare the hidden sins and deceit that had festered for too long. To him, an apology from Claire would not absolve the harm done, but it might offer a glimpse into a lost humanity that had been buried beneath layers of ambition and treachery. In the end, the paths of these three souls, Claire, Kyle, and Jack, remained irrevocably intertwined in a narrative that was as unpredictable as it was explosive. Victor, ever the puppeteer, continued to pull the strings, his eyes ever gleaming with the satisfaction of watching greed and ambition lead his adversaries into their own undoing. The confrontation between Jack and Victor promised to be a spectacle of unbridled passion and raw truth, where every secret would be thrust into the unforgiving light of day. As the tension mounted and the corridors of power echoed with whispered conspiracies, one thing became clear: the question of whether Claire would ever regret her choices and seek forgiveness from Kyle and Jack was not a matter of mere chance. It was the fulcrum upon which the future of this high-stakes game would pivot. The truth of her soul, as dark and conflicted as it had become, hung in the balance, poised to either crumble under the weight of her guilt or to forge a new path paved with even deeper treachery.